Did you know that many of the biblical accounts, often considered myths or just stories of faith, have been supported by scientific and archaeological discoveries? Over the centuries, sacred narratives have found new ways to connect with historical reality, and what once seemed impossible is now being confirmed by concrete evidence. In today's video, we will explore 10 biblical facts that science has already proven, and which will certainly change your view of the Bible. Get ready for a fascinating journey where faith and history meet. After all, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The Stone of David and Goliath. The story of David and Goliath, found in the book of 1 Samuel, is one of the most iconic in the Bible, where the young shepherd David defeats the giant Philistine Goliath with a single stone thrown from his sling. Although seen as a story of faith, many wonder if there is a historical basis for this event. Recent archaeology can help us better understand this battle. In 2008, archaeologist Dr. Avraham Biran began excavations at Tel Dan, an area identified as Gath, the birthplace of Goliath. The excavations revealed remains of a large Philistine city, which matches the biblical description of Gath as an important military center. While no direct record of Goliath was found, the evidence of a large Philistine empire reinforces the plausibility of the biblical account. Furthermore, the city of Gath was known for its fortress and advanced infrastructure, suggesting that Goliath, described in the Bible as an imposing warrior, could have been a real leader of the time. Excavations at Tel Dan revealed a series of military artifacts, such as weapons and pottery fragments, indicating the power of the Philistines and the importance of Gath as a military hub. While we cannot definitively say that Goliath existed, the discovery of Gath as a prosperous and militarily powerful city allows us to understand the historical context of the battle between David and Goliath. The episode, more than a simple confrontation between a shepherd and a giant warrior, could have reflected a real event involving a challenging military empire and the power of a bold young man, driven by faith. As it is written in 1 Samuel 17:47, "All this assembly shall know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." Pharaoh's chariot wheels in the Red Sea. The crossing of the Red Sea is one of the most iconic stories in the Bible. The book of Exodus describes how Moses led the Israelites fleeing Egypt, crossing the sea while the waters parted. When Pharaoh's army pursued them, the waters returned and engulfed the Egyptian soldiers. Many see this story as a supernatural miracle, but could there be a scientific explanation for what happened? In 2010, scientist Carl Drews, an expert in atmospheric computer modeling, studied the climatic conditions of the Nile Delta and the topography of the Red Sea. He simulated the strong winds that, for several hours, could have caused a natural phenomenon known as wind set-down, in which wind pushes the water away from an area, creating a temporary pathway on the sea floor. The simulations indicated that winds of up to 95 kilometers per hour could have made the waters recede, allowing the crossing. Moreover, other reports of similar phenomena, such as the tsunami at Muro Island in the Philippines in 1994, show that before a major disaster, the sea suddenly receded, which echoes the biblical description of the waters pulling back. This suggests that the event described in Exodus could have been a natural phenomenon interpreted as a divine miracle. Although the scientific explanation does not diminish the supernatural nature of the story, it opens the door to a new understanding. The miracle could have been a natural event, but directed by God. As stated in Exodus 14:14, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." In this case, faith and science can walk together, revealing a divine power present even in the forces of nature. The city of Sodom. The story of Sodom, mentioned in Genesis, is one of the most well-known in the Bible, especially due to its tragic destruction. According to the account, the city was consumed by fire and brimstone as a divine punishment for the extreme wickedness of its inhabitants. For centuries, the location of Sodom was a mystery, and many considered the story to be a legend or allegory. However, recent archaeological excavations have shed light on the possible location and existence of this city. In 1970, archaeologists began excavating an area near the Dead Sea known as Tel El-Hammam in the valley of Siddim, and they believe it may be the location of Sodom. The excavation revealed an ancient city that was abruptly destroyed, with evidence of a catastrophe that could be compared to an explosion of great magnitude. Layers of destruction found include ashes and fragments of molten stones, suggesting a violent destruction similar to that described in the Bible. Additionally, high levels of sulfur and salt were found in the destruction layers, which is significant because the Bible describes Sodom as being destroyed by fire and sulfur. The presence of sulfur in such a vast area corroborates this description and offers a possible explanation for the event, which many associate with a natural cataclysm. Although the exact location of Sodom has not been confirmed, the evidence found at Tel El-Hammam provides a plausible context for the biblical account. The archaeological discoveries reinforce the idea that the destruction of Sodom was not just a mythical story, but possibly a real event with devastating consequences for the city's inhabitants. As it is written in Genesis 19:24-25, "Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens, and he overthrew those cities, all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities." The Temple of Solomon. The Temple of Solomon is one of the most revered structures in biblical history. According to the book of 1 Kings, the temple was built by King Solomon in Jerusalem as a place of worship to God. It was a monumental work described in the Bible with impressive details about its architecture and precious materials. Its destruction by the Babylonians in 586 BC left the temple as a symbol of lost faith. But over time, archaeology has provided clues about its location and historical significance. Although the original temple was destroyed, Jewish tradition and the scriptures indicate that it was built on Mount Moriah, where the Dome of the Rock now stands in Jerusalem. Archaeologists have been investigating the site, conducting excavations and studies to better understand the temple's structure and confirm its exact location. During excavations in Jerusalem, traces of large stones and walls have been found, suggesting the existence of a massive structure where the temple is believed to have been. A significant discovery was the Yigel stone, found in 1961, which contains an inscription mentioning the Temple of Solomon, confirming its religious and historical importance. The presence of ancient inscriptions and other artifacts also supports the idea that Jerusalem was a vibrant religious center during Solomon's period. Although the structure of the original temple did not survive, the archaeological evidence and ancient inscriptions help reconstruct the image of Solomon's temple and reinforce its significance not only spiritually but also historically. The temple represented God's presence among the Israelites, and its loss was a pivotal event in biblical history. As it is written in 1 Kings 6:12, "As for this house which you are building, if you walk in my statutes, execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments and walk in them, then I will perform my word with you, which I spoke to your father David." The census of David. The story of the census of David, described in the book of 2 Samuel 24, is a controversial episode in the life of King David. According to the biblical account, David ordered a census of Israel and Judah to count the number of men able to go to war. While David's motive for the census is unclear, the act was seen as a sin in the eyes of God, who punished the king and the people with a devastating plague. Despite being a well-known story, many questioned the veracity of the census, especially given the lack of historical records confirming this event. However, in 2007, an archaeological discovery made in the ancient city of Damascus, Syria, brought new evidence that could corroborate the biblical account. Archaeologists found an inscription on a stone known as the Tel Dan stele, which refers to a census conducted by an Israelite king. The inscription, dating from the 9th century BC, mentions the practice of censuses in Israel, suggesting that David's census could have been a real event and part of a common practice at the time, not an isolated incident. Furthermore, David's census is closely linked to the idea of population and military control, a practice that aligns with the administrative and fiscal practices of ancient monarchies. The fact that David was punished for this action also reflects the theocratic nature of Israel at the time, where God's sovereignty over the people was paramount. The story can thus be seen not only as a political episode, but also as a moral lesson about trusting in God. As stated in 2 Samuel 24:10, "And David said to God, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. But now, O Lord, I beg you, take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly." The Tel Dan inscription. The Tel Dan inscription, discovered in 1993 in northern Israel, is one of the most important archaeological finds that reinforce the historicity of biblical figures. The inscription, dating to the 9th century BC, mentions the House of David, referring to the dynasty of David, the king of Israel, who, according to the Bible, was chosen by God to rule over Israel and Judah. For centuries, the existence of David was questioned by many scholars, as there was no direct archaeological evidence confirming his existence outside the scriptures. The discovery of this inscription changed that perspective, offering proof that David's dynasty was not merely a literary construct, but a historical reality. The inscription was found at Tel Dan, an archaeological site in the Galilee region, and was engraved on a stone stele, written in Aramaic. The text mentions a king of Israel and the House of David, suggesting that David's dynasty existed at a time when the kingdom of Israel was involved in conflicts with other powers in the region, such as Aram. The inscription also refers to a victory of an Aramean king over the House of David, placing this dynasty within a historical context of conflict and power. This archaeological evidence is crucial because it provides extra-biblical proof of David's existence and his dynasty. Although the inscription does not directly mention David himself, the reference to his house is confirmation that he was a real historical figure. Additionally, the discovery reinforces the credibility of the biblical accounts, which present David as the founder of a dynasty that would rule Israel and Judah for generations. As it is written in 2 Samuel 7:16, "And your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever." The writing on the wall, Daniel 5. The story of the writing on the wall, recounted in the book of Daniel 5, is one of the most enigmatic and impactful moments in the Old Testament. The Babylonian king Belshazzar, during a great banquet, used the sacred vessels from the temple in Jerusalem to celebrate, disrespecting what was sacred. At that moment, a hand appeared and wrote mysterious words on the wall, challenging the king. The message, saying, "Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin," was interpreted by Daniel as a divine warning. Belshazzar's empire was doomed, and he would lose his kingdom to the Persians. For centuries, this episode was regarded as merely a symbol of divine judgment. However, recently, some scholars have pointed out that the practice of writing on walls, mentioned in the book of Daniel, was not a literary invention, but something that actually happened in ancient Babylon. Archaeological excavations in Babylon have revealed inscriptions on the walls of palaces and temples that were used to record royal decrees, and in some cases, predictions and divine messages. One of the most interesting discoveries came from the palace of Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon, where inscriptions were found that might suggest the practice of writing divine messages or warnings. While no inscription has been directly related to the story of the handwriting on the wall, the discovery of these texts provides a deeper context for how Babylon interacted with its gods and how sacred messages were interpreted and disseminated. Although there is no direct evidence that the event described in Daniel occurred exactly as the Bible recounts, the archaeological discoveries help provide a cultural and historical foundation for the practice described. The story of Belshazzar and the writing on the wall, more than just a supernatural event, reflects the idea that in antiquity, divine messages could be read in events that seemed inexplicable, as it is written in Daniel 5:24-25. Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Elijah's fire on Mount Carmel. The episode of Elijah's fire on Mount Carmel, described in 1 Kings 18, is one of the greatest miracles performed by the prophet Elijah. During a period of great apostasy in Israel, when the worship of Baal was rising, Elijah challenged the 450 prophets of Baal to a public competition to prove which God was true. The test was simple. Both sides were to prepare an altar and cry out for celestial fire to consume the offering. The prophets of Baal cried out and danced, but nothing happened. When it was Elijah's turn, he prepared the altar, soaked the offering with water, and prayed to God. Immediately, fire descended from heaven and completely consumed the offering, including the water around the altar. This miracle was a demonstration of divine power, showing that the God of Israel was the only true God. Although the event was a miracle, many scholars seek to understand the historical and natural context behind this occurrence. Some researchers suggest that the fire could have been caused by a natural phenomenon, such as lightning or spontaneous ignition, due to the atmospheric conditions in the region. Mount Carmel, located in a volcanic area and prone to electrical storms, could have been a place where natural phenomena might be interpreted as divine signs, especially considering the context of intense pagan worship. However, the Bible makes it clear that the fire that consumed the offering was a direct manifestation of God responding to Elijah's prayer. Even if natural phenomena may have contributed to the human understanding of the event, Elijah's faith and divine intervention remain at the center of the story. As it is written in 1 Kings 18:38, "Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench." The exile of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The exile of the 10 lost tribes of Israel is one of the most mysterious and significant events in biblical history. In the 8th century BC, the kingdom of Israel, which consisted of the 10 northern tribes, was invaded and destroyed by the Assyrian Empire. Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III began the conquest of the northern tribes, and his successor, Shalmaneser V, completed the process, deporting thousands of Israelites to other parts of the Assyrian Empire. These Israelites never returned, which led to the legend of the 10 lost tribes. For a long time, the reasons behind their loss and the fate of these tribes were shrouded in mystery. While the Bible describes the exile in detail in 2 Kings 17, with the tribes being taken to Assyria, it was not clear what happened to these people after their deportation. However, recent archaeological and historical evidence has shed new light on this event. Excavations in areas of ancient Assyria, such as Nimrud and Nineveh, have revealed records and inscriptions of massive deportations carried out by the Assyrians, confirming the process described in the Bible. Additionally, some of the exiled tribes may have mixed with other cultures, helping explain their loss over time. Recent research indicates that the exiled 10 tribes of Israel may have spread across various regions, with some communities preserving their identity while others merged with local peoples. Historical accounts and oral traditions from various cultures suggest that descendants of these tribes may have migrated to distant places such as Persia, India, and even Central Asia. The story of the 10 lost tribes continues to be a fascinating subject of research, linking biblical events with archaeological and historical discoveries. As it is written in 2 Kings 17:23, "Until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets." The Nativity of Jesus in Bethlehem. The Nativity of Jesus, narrated in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, is one of the most significant and celebrated events in Christian history. According to Christian tradition, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Judea, during the reign of Caesar Augustus, and his mother, Mary, was traveling due to a census ordered by the Roman emperor. The place of Jesus' birth, a stable in Bethlehem, is full of symbolism, as the Messiah came into the world in a humble setting, far from riches and power. While the story is widely known, there are questions about the historical accuracy and the exact location of Bethlehem at the time. Archaeology has shed new light on the historical context of Jesus' nativity. Excavations in Bethlehem, particularly near the Church of the Nativity, confirm that the city was already an important population center during the Roman Empire period, though it was not as large as Jerusalem. In 2012, archaeologists discovered traces of an ancient city dating back to the period when Jesus is believed to have been born, corroborating the biblical description of Bethlehem as a growing city at the time. Additionally, studies of the census by Caesar Augustus, mentioned in Luke 2:1, show that Roman censuses were conducted in various parts of the empire for fiscal and military purposes. The census of Caesar Augustus, which is dated to 6 to 7 AD, aligns with the traditional dating of Jesus' birth, reinforcing the truthfulness of the account. Although the simple reference to the stable as the place of Jesus' birth has been interpreted in various ways, many scholars believe that the manger mentioned in the Gospel could have been a cave or a more modest area within a traditional house of the time. Archaeological research, combined with the historical context, offers a more detailed picture of the setting of Jesus' birth. As it is written in Matthew 2:1, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem." As we explore these stories, we see that the Bible is not just a book of faith, but also a historical testament, with each archaeological discovery and scientific study adding layers of understanding to what was recorded millennia ago. From figures like David and Goliath to events like the crossing of the Red Sea, we see that the scriptures not only narrate miracles and spiritual teachings, but are also deeply intertwined with the real history of humanity. Each new discovery, whether an ancient inscription or archaeological evidence, brings us closer to understanding how faith and science can coexist. And as we see, these discoveries do not diminish the wonder of faith, but strengthen it, showing that God can manifest even in the most unexpected events of history. Remember what is written in John 8:32, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." The search for truth, whether spiritual or historical, leads us to a deeper understanding of our relationship with the divine and with the world around us. If this video has inspired or touched you in any way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who also needs to hear these truths. With each new episode, we will continue exploring how faith and history intertwine, bringing us closer to understanding the divine plan. Until next time, and may God bless your journey. See you soon.